Rick Dawson had spent the better part of his life chasing oil in places where the ground fought back. At 52, he was a retired petroleum engineer, his body marked by the scars of rig accidents, and his mind weary from the constant roar of machinery. The cities, Houston, Calgary, Dubai, had all blended into a haze of hotel rooms, boardrooms, and endless deadlines. His brother Tom had been his anchor in those chaotic years, the two of them dreaming of a quieter life during late-night phone calls. Tom didn't make it. A platform explosion off the Gulf took him at 38. All Rick had left of him was a small fishing boat, weathered by salt and time, and a tackle box engraved with Tom's initials. When the listing for the 48-acre ranch outside Winslow Bend, Arizona popped up on his screen, Rick knew it was time. The price was steep, $890, but it included everything he craved. Open land for a few cows and goats, a barn for tinkering, and a natural spring-fed lake that promised serenity. The lake was the jewel, 2 acres of clear water, ringed by willow trees that whispered in the wind, and rocky ledges perfect for skipping stones. The deed was clean, the title unencumbered, bought from Mr. Cole's daughter after the old man's passing. Mr. Cole had been in his 80s, a sweet soul who hadn't minded neighbors dipping in for a swim, but that was history now. Rick arrived on a dusty afternoon in his pickup. Tex, his golden retriever mix, barking excitedly from the passenger seat. The ranch house was a sturdy 2-story with a wraparound porch, creaking wooden floors, and a stone fireplace that begged for winter fires. He unloaded boxes of books, tools, and baking supplies. Yes, baking was his secret hobby, learned from his mother during childhood summers on her Kansas farm. The first night, he sat on the porch with a cup of black coffee, watching the sun dip behind the hills, the lake turning golden in the twilight. "This is it, Tex," he murmured, scratching the dog's ears. "Peace at last." But peace was an illusion in Winslow Bend. The ranch bordered Lake Hill Estates, a suburban enclave of 127 homes with uniform lawns, white picket fences, and a communal pride that bordered on obsession. The HOA ruled with an iron fist, dictating everything from mailbox colors to holiday decorations. What Rick didn't know was that for years, the residents had treated his lake as their own. Mr. Cole's handshake deal had allowed picnics, swimming, and even a floating dock built on the east bank, Rick's bank, without permission. 3 days after settling in, Rick decided to introduce himself. He baked chocolate chip cookies, the kitchen filling with the warm scent of butter and vanilla, a recipe straight from his mother's notebook. Tin in hand, he walked the half-mile to the HOA office, a small brick building at the community's entrance, adorned with flags and a sign reading, "Lake Hill Estates, where community thrives." Inside, the air was cool and scented with artificial lavender. Framed photos of barbecues and concerts lined the walls. Behind the desk sat Margaret Pierce, HOA president in her mid-60s, with a sharp bob haircut, pearl earrings, and a blouse buttoned to the throat. She exuded authority. A plaque on her desk boasted HOA President of the Year 2018. "Good afternoon," Rick said, smiling as he set the tin down. "I'm Rick Dawson, new owner of the Cole Ranch. Thought I'd say hello and bring these." Margaret glanced at the cookies with disdain, as if they were an insult. "Mr. Dawson," she said, her voice sharp as a knife edge, "we've heard about the sale. I hope you're planning to maintain the shoreline. It's been a complete mess since Mr. Cole stopped caring. Weeds everywhere, trash from storms. Our residents expect a certain standard." Rick nodded politely, though her tone grated. "I'll do my best, ma'am. It's a ranch lake, so I'll be using it for fishing mostly. Maybe teach some local kids how to cast if they're interested." "Fishing?" She recoiled as if he'd suggested dumping oil in the water. "Absolutely not. Fishing is prohibited on HOA property. It attracts unwanted wildlife, pollutes the water with bait and lines." Rick tilted his head, confusion knitting his brows. "But ma'am, it's not HOA property. The lake's entirely on my ranch. The deed confirms it. I just wanted to be neighborly." Her smile was a frozen mask, eyes cold. "Well, we'll see about that, Mr. Dawson. Good day." Rick left, the cookies untouched, a knot forming in his stomach. He should have seen the warning signs. But he was a man of optimism, raised to believe in handshakes and goodwill. Over the next few weeks, the encroachments began subtly. His private property sign at the lake's edge disappeared, likely tossed into the brush. He replaced it only to find it gone again. A group of teenagers jumped off the dock one afternoon, their laughter echoing as they splashed. When Rick approached, they scattered, one yelling, "Hey, mister, this dock's always been open to everyone." Then came the tree pruner, an HOA contractor with a permit in hand. "Gotta trim this willow. It's overhanging the path," he said, chainsaw revving. "That's on my land," Rick protested mildly. "No one's asked permission. The HOA permit says we can, for safety." Rick let it go, but mailed a letter to the HOA office, polite, firm, with copies of his deed and a surveyor map showing clear boundaries. No reply came. The knot in his stomach tightened. One crisp Saturday morning, Rick woke to the unexpected sounds of festivity drifting up from the lake. Laughter, the sizzle of grills, country music blaring from a Bluetooth speaker. Peering out his kitchen window, coffee mug in hand, he saw it, a full-blown barbecue on his lakefront. Folding chairs scattered across the grass. Kids running with water guns. Adults in swimsuits lounging on towels. A floating cooler bobbed in the water, stocked with cans bobbing like buoys. This was too much. Rick set his mug down, leashed Tex, and marched down the hill. The air smelled of charred burgers and sunscreen. "Excuse me, folks," he called out, raising his voice over the chatter. "I hate to interrupt your fun, but this is private property. I'm the owner, Rick Dawson, and I'm afraid you'll have to pack up and leave." The crowd fell into an awkward silence. A burly man in a Hawaiian shirt stood, beer in hand. "Who the hell are you?" "This lake's been community access for years. I bought the ranch 2 years ago," Rick explained calmly. "The lake came with it. No offense, but I can't have this. Liability issues if someone gets hurt." Murmurs rippled through the group. Some packed up grudgingly, but others glared. 20 minutes later, a golf cart whirred up the path. Margaret Pierce at the wheel, her pearls clinking with each bump. She stepped out, arms crossed, face a thundercloud. "This lake has always belonged to the community," she declared, voice carrying like a judge's gavel. "You're ruining a decade-old tradition. Mr. Dawson, our families have picnicked here for generations." Rick held his ground, Tex sitting obediently at his side. "I bought it fair and square, ma'am. Look, I'm not trying to be mean, but I can't be liable if someone drowns or gets injured." "You didn't even ask permission." Her eyes narrowed to slits, lips pursing. "You'll regret this attitude. The HOA won't stand for it." The crowd dispersed, but the damage was done. The next morning, Rick discovered the vandalism. The boathouse door hung ajar, lock pried open. Inside, chaos. Fishing poles snapped like twigs. Reels tangled in heaps, his brother's tackle box smashed. Its contents, lures, hooks. Photos of Tom, scattered and crushed. Across the side wall in dripping red spray paint, HOA property. Rick's chest tightened, a mix of anger and grief. That tackle box was sacred, Tom's last gift. He called the police. Officer Rhodes arrived, a mid-40s man with tired eyes and a notepad. "No witnesses? No cameras?" he asked, surveying the damage. "Not yet," Rick admitted. "But I'll fix that." The report was filed, but with no evidence it stalled. Rick installed security cameras that afternoon. Motion activated. Hidden in the eaves and trees, linked to his phone. 2 weeks passed in uneasy quiet. Rick avoided the lake, focusing on ranch chores, mending fences, feeding the goats, baking bread to calm his nerves. Then, one dawn, he decided to reclaim his peace. He launched the boat, Tex at the bow. The sunrise painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The water was glassy, the air cool. Rick cast his line, the plop echoing, a can of root beer fizzing in his hand. For a moment it was perfect. Then Margaret appeared at the edge, face red, pointing accusatorily. "I told you this was private property," she screeched, her voice piercing the tranquility. "You're trespassing on HOA land." Rick reeled in slowly, boat coasting gently. "Ma'am, this is my lake, my ranch." She waved her phone like a weapon, dialing furiously. Minutes later, a cop car pulled up, lights spinning but siren off. Officer Rhodes stepped out, hand on his belt, sighing as if this was the last thing he needed. "Sir, we received a call from the Lake Hill Estates HOA. They say you're trespassing." Rick blinked, rod in one hand, root beer in the other. "I own this lake. That's my house up on the ridge. You got proof?" "Deed in my truck." "Well, come ashore," Rhodes said, inconvenienced. As Rick complied, Margaret shouted from the bank. "We warned you." "Rick, you can't use our lake like you're special." Rick remained calm, but inside, the spark of retaliation ignited. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was an assault on his rights. 8 minutes after Rhodes's arrival, while Margaret huffed on the shore and the officer questioned him about boundaries, Rick stepped aside and made a quiet call. Not to a lawyer or the police, to Greg, His old high school friend turned real estate broker in town. Greg, quick favor. Find out who owns the Marina, the one the HOA uses for boats, events, meetings. The whole shebang. Greg, ever efficient, called back within the hour. Company called Shoreline Ventures. They've been looking to sell for months, tired of the HOA's constant demands and rule changes. Lease expires in 2 weeks. They're eager for a cash buyer. Make an offer. Full price, fast-track closing. By sundown it was done. Rick owned the Marina, 40 yards of shoreline, floating docks, gravel roads, picnic tables, the HOA's only public access to the lake. The cost? A chunk of his savings, but worth it. He said nothing, staring at Margaret and her allies from the water, their arms crossed. Like toddlers denied a toy. Let's see how they like the new rules. He muttered under his breath. The next morning Margaret returned, not with words but action. Crowbar in hand, she stormed the boathouse. Tex was inside, barking panicked yelps that sent Rick sprinting from the dock, boots pounding wood. "Tex," he shouted. The door creaked as she jammed the crowbar in, yanking hard. The latch cracked. Tex darted out, whimpering into Rick's arms. Margaret spun, breathing heavy, hair disheveled. "This is our boathouse. You can't block access to Lake Hill amenities." Rick's voice echoed in the metal walls. "There are security cameras in here, Margaret. You just broke into my property. You're trespassing, vandalizing, threatening my dog. You think you can buy a lake and bully us out? We've had this for generations. I should call the cops." "Call them," she sneered, a cruel smile twisting her features. "Let's see if they care about one cranky old rancher or an HOA with legal representation." Rick locked Tex back inside and drove to town, heart racing. He wasn't going to match her fury. He'd use strategy. At the county records office, Greg handed him the Marina contract. "All signed and sealed. The shoreline is yours, including the walkways and tables. Their 4th of July party. They'll need your permission." Rick smiled faintly. "Perfect." He hired a crew that afternoon. They installed a sturdy metal gate across the Marina entrance, clanging hammers echoing. Private property signs went up, and the floating dock was painted bright red, with 3-foot letters spelling the warning. The paint smell lingered in the air. It took less than 2 hours for the HOA board to arrive. First Carl Masters, the treasurer, bald, late 40s, in a sweater vest despite the heat. Then Sandy, the secretary, clutching a notepad nervously. Finally Margaret, pacing like a caged tiger, rattling the gate. "You can't do this!" "This is illegal obstruction." Rick sat on a bench nearby, sipping lemonade, silent behind sunglasses, watching the scene unfold like a spectator at a bad play. "You're going to regret this, Rick Dawson." Margaret spat. "No, Margaret," he replied quietly. "You are." That night, through his attorney, he sent a formal cease and desist letter. It outlined every violation: trespassing, vandalism, damages estimated at $5,000. Attached was footage from the boathouse break-in. It was enough for a restraining order. But Rick held off, planning something bigger. The HOA newsletter arrived in mailboxes the next day. Cheery and oblivious. "Join us for our annual lakefront BBQ this Saturday." Same time, same place. Rick waited, patience his weapon. Saturday dawned hot. Families streamed in with coolers, chairs, kids in swimsuits. They hit the gate, confusion spreading. The hired security guard, big, polite, firm, stood firm. "Sorry, folks. Private property now. Need written permission to enter." Margaret arrived, nearly combusting. "This is our land. You can't block an HOA-sanctioned event." But she had no paperwork, and Rick had all of it. From his boat across the lake, Tex curled beside him. He clicked a remote. Speakers mounted on the dock boomed his voice. "Good afternoon. Lake Hill. This marina is now under new ownership. Please refer to county records if you have any questions. You may also contact your HOA board for a refund of nothing." Gasps, stunned silence, then shouts. Families turned away, one by one. That night, Rick's inbox filled. Emails from residents offering apologies, payments for access. "She never told us the lake was privately owned. We're sorry. We thought you were the bad guy. Turns out she just didn't want to lose power." Rick didn't reply. Instead, he filed a petition with the city council to revoke the HOA's charter, tied entirely to marina access they no longer had. The next day, Rick woke to an unbearable stench wafting through his open window. Stepping outside, he gagged. His lawn was covered in dead fish, dozens of them rotting in the sun, flies buzzing in swarms. A note stapled to the boathouse door. "This ain't over, ranch boy." He checked the footage. At 2:43 a.m., Margaret, headlamp on, hoodie pulled tight, dragged 2 black trash bags from her Lexus SUV. She dumped the fish, looked straight into the lens twice, and staked a sign, HOA strong, we're not backing down. Rick felt a surge of pity. Margaret's life was built on control, fences, trash cans, flower beds. Now it was crumbling, but pity didn't erase the acts. He called Officer Rhodes. They sat at Rick's kitchen table, coffee steaming, laptop playing the footage. Rhodes rubbed his temples. You sure you want to press charges? Not yet. I want to give her one last chance, publicly. Rick printed 127 flyers. Town. Meeting at the lake. Learn the truth. Ask questions. Hosted by Rick Dawson. Free BBQ and drinks. Saturday, 3 p.m. HOA board welcome. A local boy delivered them for $50. By Saturday, over 60 residents showed up. Picnic blankets spread. Kids munching hot dogs from a grill Rick manned. A small stage of hay bales. Speaker system rented. At 3 p.m., Rick took the mic. Folks, thanks for coming. I'm Rick Dawson. I own this ranch, including the lake you've enjoyed for years. Gasps. A man raised his hand. You own the lake? Rick nodded, projecting deeds, maps. Audio of Margaret's threats. The cop call video, then the fish dumping. Silence fell. Her face was unmistakable. Margaret sat in the back, pale, arms crossed. A woman stood. Margaret, you told us he forged documents. That he was taking the lake from us. Another. You said the Marina belonged to Lake Hill. You made us vote to spend HOA funds on a lawsuit. Margaret rose. He's lying. Footage fake. The police have the original, Rick said. Deny it here or in court. She stormed off, no one following. The next morning, a letter taped to his gate. Rick, I'm sorry. I let this get out of hand. I don't expect forgiveness, but hope this ends here. Margaret. Rick considered it, but remembered the smashed tackle box, the threats. He filed with the city. Vandalism, harassment, fraud. Evidence included footage, emails. 3 days later, the city letter, HOA Lake Access, suspended pending investigation. The board panicked. Carl made his move with fire. Texas barks woke Rick at 6:15 a.m. Smoke billowed from the lake. Thick and black. Rick scrambled out, boots on, no shirt, extinguisher from the truck. The red dock blazed, flames dancing on water, boards cracking, sign melted. He sprayed foam, but half was gone. Fire department arrived, hoses dousing. Arson, they said. Gasoline residue. Shui complained Rick did it for attention. Carl's work. Footage showed a hooded figure at 3:12 a.m. Gas can in hand, glasses glinting. Carl. Rick invited residents to a second gathering. Word of mouth. By the scorched dock, he projected the footage. Gasps. Carl. He stammered. Fake. Then ran. Arrested. Arson, destruction, false report. News. HOA member in dock fire scandal. Margaret silent, but a legal document on the gate. Suing for eminent domain. Claiming community use. Greg. Nonsense, but could trigger review. Rick countersued. Harassment, damage, fraud. Media frenzy. Lake war. Hearing. Rick presented evidence. Counsel. Any ownership docs, Miss Pierce? No. Petition denied. Ruling nailed to gate. But a silver SUV lingered. Man in suit photographing. Guard Everland Property Development. Tip PDF proposal 200 homes Marina on Rick's land. Margaret selling to developers. Rick held a press conference. Chairs by gate, mic set up. Everland wants to turn this into resorts. HOA's been meeting secretly, using lawsuits to push me out. Crowd outrage. Mayor. Investigation launched. Night. Rock thud. Envelope with photos of Rick, Tex, house, sister's cabin. Note. Big man's game. Careful. Proposal mentioned grant. Rick called feds, fraud, threats. Retaliation. Tex gone. Note. Stand down or dog not last. Rick searched, called Rhodes. Raid on Everland. Seizures, arrests. Margaret for $75,000 bribe. Tex found at gas station, hungry but alive. Rick cried, hugging him. Chapter 7. Triumph and Legacy. Everland stock tanked. News. Fraud, dog napping scandal. Rancher defeats HOA. HOA dissolved. Rick bought Marina cheap, bulldozed signs. Opened community dock. Free. Opening. 300 people. Music, food, Tex cutout. Rick on rebuilt dock. Tex beside. Sun setting. Kindness isn't weakness. Justice wears boots.